Hello, hello, hello. It is me, your true heel phenom, SP3, back once again with the princess of all the true heels herself, Miss Krssi Love. And we are back
Hello,
again.
hello, hello.
Dark Side of the Ring, Season 2, Episode 6, Dino Bravo. This one was one that a lot of people were not really talking about at the beginning of the season. A lot of people did not know the whole story. We knew that it was a mystery concerning the death of Dino Bravo, but we didn't know how deep the rabbit hole went as far as the mystery surrounding his murder. So, what was your overall thoughts on the episode before we get started telling the story?
We were watching a new modern crime show of a wrestler that was, as they said, assassinated. But he was killed, and I think the neighbor know, and I think some other people know what happened, but they just can't say nothing because they're in Canada and they got some like whole new other stuff going on up there that we don't know about. But whatever.
It really like was kind of like went from like a whole story about how wrestlers should have like a retirement plan and a plan after
Or
their
pension.
career, yeah, pension after their career. And then it went from there to I felt like I was watching like Goodfellas or Casino or watching an episode of The Sopranos. It was very, very much organized crime-ish.
And all these people are speaking French and they know what happened and they just can't say nothing. So it's just like, oh, blah 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 blah. You sure that's what they really were saying and no, there were no subtitles? I think they was
No,
like,
I did peep like some of the stuff you could kind of peep the affliction or like the English. You could kind of hear the English in some of the words they were saying. So I did like those subtitles. Everything. It wasn't too much of a oh man, it's a whole different language. I don't want to watch this.
right. And then if I missed something, I was like, damn, I gotta go back because I gotta see what they said because I can't hear. I don't know what he's saying. So
Exactly. This was one that I was like, yeah, I definitely got to watch this more than once, more than
right.
once for
Yep.
sure. So you could get us started on how they introduced the whole story of Dino Bravo with the early part of his career.
They said he was like the Hulk Hogan of Canada, which I was very surprised to hear because I remember who he was and didn't know that he was such a big star for them back then. So they started off about
Specifically Montreal, Quebec.
right.
Specifically Montreal, Quebec. He was the Hulk Hogan of Montreal, as they say.
You know what? You're right. Not Canada, of Montreal. That's the only country that will recognize him. You're right. Pretty much, he was like their big main star. He had his own wrestling business, which was what international.
International wrestling.
There you go. And he was the promoter, and then people was hating on him because he would book himself as like the main matches in his own promotion. They was haters, and they wanted to like be in that same realm. But
I
yeah, I guess
mean,
when you're
when
the
has
boss,
there? Let's just be honest here. Throughout history of wrestling, if you're a new wrestling fan that's just watching Dark Side of the Ring or just watching this review, if you're a wrestler and you're a part of the booking team of a promotion, 9 times out of 10, you're gonna book yourself in the main event. Like
you're the star.
Dusty Rhodes, Jeff Jarrett, Ric Flair. The list goes on. Triple H. The list goes
Hmm.
on and on of guys that were a part of the booking team that put themselves into the main event scene. Dino Bravo is just one of the same.
So pretty much they go into talking about how he's like this big star. They bring the underlying people that are going to tell the stories, which was Tony Mule, which was his neighbor.
And the
You had
promoter for international wrestling.
and one of the promoters as well. Then you had Jacques, which is the
Ja-
Mountie.
Jacques
I
Rougeau, I popped so much.
I was like, wait, is that the Mountie? Before they even showed his name, I was like, I did kind of pop. I ain't even gonna lie to you. I was like,
I popped when I heard his voice. When I heard his voice, I
I
was like,
didn't
wait,
even
that's
really
the Mountie.
recognize his voice right away because I remember he had a list when he used to talk, and I was like, dang. And then the man was like, "Do you want to introduce yourself?" He was like, "What? What do you mean?" And I was like, "Oh no!" I did kind of like fan that. I'm not even gonna lie to you. He's like the sung hero of this episode for me. I'm not,
He was the real, to me, he was like the real MVP of it. Him, and we'll get to another person later on in it that didn't want to take part in the documentary, but
Rick
footage
Martel.
of footage of him from the past was definitely a key information in this unsolved mystery here. We also had Claudia, which was his daughter.
Another child that's just like, damn, son, like she's left behind because of the actions of their parent, and that's just her dad, and it's just like, damn. I felt, kind of felt a little like, just like Benoit's son. I felt like that soft spot for them. You know what I'm saying? Like they didn't know anything of what their parent did. That's just their dad, and it'll always be their dad, their hero.
Exactly. Like it's kind of bad that they, it ruins their image of their fathers with the actions that they did, the later part of their lives. It's a little bit, more sadder for Diana because she was so young, being so
Right.
young at the time. And I like the whole story about Dino, becoming, the famous big star, making all the big money, buying the house, and then buying his daughter at 4 years old.
This red spending his money like rich people do.
It's the 19. Like I said this to somebody as I was watching the show. I was like,
the 80s.
Yeah, the 80s and the 90s, all these wrestlers were bad with their money. It's just like a common theme with all these wrestlers around that time. All of them were really bad with their money.
Pretty much, yes. Correct, yes. So as they're coming along, it shows how he met his wife, and she met him at a bar. She was in the bar, or whatever, and he was there. And he was like, "You don't know who he is?" And she was like, "No," like because in Montreal, he was a big star there. And she was like, "No, I don't know who he is, whatever." He's like, "Oh yeah, he's a famous like wrestler, fighter." He was just like, "Okay." She's like, "He took me home that day or whatever." Cute little story of how, the little background. But then it brings you more up to date of like, oh, his promotion is not really doing very well, and they're all getting the calls from other places, and how, Vince is coming along and he's bringing his promotion around. He wants to be a part of the big scene in Montreal. So, some of the boys start getting these phone calls, the Mountie himself, and it was like, oh, we're gonna go to this, this other promotion that's over here. No bad feelings, but we gotta go. We're gonna check the deuces.
This was the common theme of especially the early part of the 80s, Vince raping and pillaging the wrestling scene to build the WWF as the number one monster, the number one promotion in all of professional wrestling.
Correct. And the Mountie would tell you himself, he's like, who? His impersonations were amazing.
He was very good throughout this whole episode. Another one that added like a lot of like little tidbits and information was wrestling historian Patrick Laprade, who had an excellent accent. I will say he had the best accent of anybody in this episode. Everything he said just had another like gravitas to it because his accent was so stellar.
Mm-hmm.
So he kind of talks about how Dino Bravo was like a superhero to him, and how like he was like an action figure come to life. How he's like the big star. Talked about the other big stars, the Rougeaus, Andre the Giant, Rick Martel.
Haku. Yeah, I didn't even know. Wow. Wow. First of all, wow. And I forget that, like the Andre the Giant was not in WWF right away. He was doing other scenes, and he did not speak English was not his first language. I tend to forget these things of like, I was like, what? I didn't even know how cool was there. Like, this is just like bringing like the 80s like child out. Like, I'm like, what? The Russos? I remember the Russos, and then he became the Mountie. I was like, what? It's crazy. Are they related, by the way?
Yeah, that's his.
That's his real brother.
Yeah, that's like his older brother. It's either his older brother or his dad. I don't know, because he looked kind of a lot older than him. But yeah, they're the Rougeau. They were called the Rougeau brothers. So I'm gonna assume that that's his older brother. But he did look like he was old enough to be his dad. He looked like French Canadian Burt Reynolds. Jock's brother to me.
Still there. He's still there. He does the whole French
Yeah,
commentating for them.
French announce team. Yeah, yeah, he's still there. That's crazy, crazy. How long these guys last WWE sometimes.
You
But
need
like
to because you got no pension.
so yeah, so as you said, he kind of gets his promotion shut down by the WWF as they're taking over all these different places, and then eventually, of course, Dino is also came on over when International Wrestling closes down. Vince McMahon gives him the phone call and brings him into the WWF.
He didn't want to, but he really had no choice. He had a family. He had his back against the wall, so he really had to do what he needed to do. And then the Mountie said he saw him. He was like, "Hey, man, what's going on? I see you here."
He's like, it's kind of awkward, but you're here now, so you a part of this too.
And
I
then
I like they touched on the whole teased Hogan and Dino Bravo matchup because that was
yeah,
something. Because I listened to, like I touched on before with the Dark Side of the Ring, a nice supplementary thing to kind of add on to it is Something to Wrestle with Bruce Pritchard. It's been a podcast for over 4 years now. So they've touched on a lot of the different topics that go in that they touch on in Dark Side of the Ring. And they have touched on Dino Bravo in the past and talk about how big Dino Bravo was a star. And Vince and Bruce does confirm that Vince did pull back from this matchup because he knew Dino Bravo was more popular in Montreal than Hulk Hogan.
well, I mean, that's his business. He always do things from a business standpoint of view. So he ain't want Hogan. That Hogan was his top guy. He couldn't have Hogan looking, bad out here in these streets.
Absolutely, but of course that upset Dino, but he
Yeah.
still had to come along and join the Giant because he couldn't compete
Uh huh.
against WWF.
Pretty much. Yep. Then after that, it gives you a spill of like he was this like hero of Montreal, but then he became the jobber, and he became like this fallen prince, and everyone was just like, "You're not as good as you used to be," and he started falling in the cracks, and he had to turn his hair blonde. He didn't want to, but he made his wife turn his hair blonde because he used to have black hair. And I was like, yeah, I remember him having dark hair, and then all of a sudden, he was blonde. And I was like, wait, I do. I could have swore I thought his hair was always blonde, but then I go back and I look and I was like, nope, it was black, and then it came blonde. So yeah, that was a nice little story that his wife said, well, I have to do what I have to do. You need to do it blonde, and for sure, bleach blonde it was.
And this is the part where we brought in the mouth of the South, Jimmy Hart, the great.
Yeah, but
Talked
he wasn't
about.
always with Jimmy. Yeah, Jimmy for at first.
Well, at first, we also didn't touch on his deal when he first came to the WWF. He signed a deal
Uh,
for $300,000 guaranteed, which in the early '90s to late '80s, that's a lot of money. And
Lot of money. Yep.
with all like the other stuff like merchandise, paydays for the different events, he could have made up to $1 million. So he made a very big deal. He had a very big deal right there. The daughter also tells a story about Jake the Snake Roberts bringing the snake
Come
over.
again. Take over the house.
That was a nice little one right there.
Classic. Yep.
So yeah, he was doing very well. He bought a nice little house in the Montreal area for his family. We talked about the car for his 4-year-old daughter that couldn't drive that yet. And then basically Vince turned him into the generic foreign heel because Dino's broken English. He had a hard time with like people understanding him. And he just didn't like to do jobs for people that he felt were beneath him or not big stars.
Yep. Yep. Definitely. And unfortunately, you not wanting to do those jobs, not looking good as a team player, and you will then be dismissed. And
And
unfortunately,
and also if you do the jobs, you hurt your value. So it's a double-edged sword.
yeah,
You double-edged
yep.
sword at that time. So Dino eventually decides he's gonna leave. He's not gonna re-up his contract with the WWF. This is around, I believe, this is like 1992.
1922, yes.
Yeah, he leaves. He leaves the company because he's putting over a lot of like young talent. I know this is at the time. I believe one of his last matches he lost to like Texas Tornado, Kerry Von Erich. He tells Jimmy Hart that he's burnt out. He wants to spend time with his family, but
Family.
unfortunately,
Mhm.
like we said at the beginning of this, there's no pension, there's no income coming in for him. So Dino had to deal with losing his passion, losing his career, but still trying to support his family and maintain the lifestyle that he already established for his family. So this is
Mhm.
where he got into the organized crime family, and you could tell us a little bit more about that part.
This is where as his wife said, he became the debt collector or enforcer for these new friends of his, which comes to find out it is actually a part of Vinny. What's the last name? Dang it, didn't write it down. Which is his
Oh,
uncle,
Vic Catroni. Vic
Vic
Catroni.
Catroni, which
Vic
is his
Catroni.
uncle.
Yeah,
And he's a big.
he's the father of the mob. He's the leader of the first mafia in Quebec, and he's the
Mhm.
former wrestler of the 1930s.
So that right there alone tells you a little bit of something. Like he's a part of this lifestyle from a long, long time ago, and it just happened to like, hey, I need some funds, and look here, I'm in a life of organized crime. But the family says, these were like, well, the mother says like these were acquaintances, but the daughter says a different synopsis as like a little girl seeing these people as like as their family. And are you there?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
okay.
No. I was saying, you're absolutely on point. They kind of had two different like perspectives of it, from seeing it from like a child's eyes, from seeing it to like the adult, the
And
wife.
adult cry. And the wife was like, I don't really like you hanging out with these people. I don't think they're really good or whatever. But at that time, he's she's not really thinking all the way into it or not saying much. But she did give her 2 cents of like, maybe you shouldn't be with these people. And those were the red flags for me started to come into play when I was watching this show.
And they like, I just love like, because like I said, like this kind of was like a career synopsis and a story to all wrestlers. Oh, have a backup plan when after your career, and then all of a sudden they just tell us, oh, he's a part of an organized family. Oh, he's a debt collector. Oh, he was sitting in his living room and got shot 11
In
times.
time.
I was like, wow, like how did they skip a few chapters here?
Tony, I believe Tony knows something because Tony lived next door, and there's no reason why Tony didn't know or hear anything during that time.
And he told Tony that he feared for his life, and that Tony knew that he was a part of the whole
The whole,
cigarette smuggling organization.
yep.
I mean, honestly, a lot of the stuff, like especially when you look at like the old like crime movies, like organized crime movies, like Goodfellas, I didn't see anything wrong with contraband cigarettes. It's gonna kill you anyway. Might as well find a way. I felt like they just were doing a business without a business plan and without a license. Like that's all they was doing. It wasn't like they weren't with the intention of going in to kill somebody. They just was trying to make a buck off of these contraband cigarettes, and then people just had to fuck them over. So then they have to be force hand to kill motherfuckers.
I'm saying just people have sold Lucy's forever for years. I don't understand like what's the big deal of selling cigarettes and Lucy's. They've always been here for like ever, and they're not going anywhere. So I don't understand why people love to stop people from killing themselves.
They gonna die anyway.
They're just gonna maybe at a faster rate. Who knows? Maybe not. But at the end of the day, why do you care what cigarettes or how they're being sold to these people?
That's not the most important thing here. But I like the part the Jock telling the whole story about how he found out like that Dino called him the night of everything happening, and asked him to come see him. And he was like, me and Dino weren't even that close. We were like acquaintances. We knew each other,
right.
but we were like really good friends. But he asked him to come see him, so he was like, yeah, I'll come see him. So as he's making the drive, some guy at a gas station is like, oh man, your friend really got it. What?
Right. Now, mind you, I'm like, well, is Quebec that small where everyone like knows each other and knew that you two was like cool or friends, and you just gonna say, hey, your friend got it? Like who? Like what? Like how do you do that to someone?
That's so insensitive. He didn't even say, hey, did you hear the news?
Right. So like
not
he
even a
found out.
warning.
So he found out on his way at the gas station before he was going. He was literally on his way there getting gas to go see this dude because he called him the night before. So he could have called him like hours before it even happened.
Yeah.
And then you know what? Back then they're not looking at like phone, calls and things like.
Yeah, they're not gonna. Maybe they do have that. That might be in their autopsy report because we didn't get that this week. We didn't get an autopsy report this week, but we
That's
do
the sad
know
part, yeah, man.
that the 11 shot. There was I think they said 4 shots to the body, 11 shots in total, 7 to the head. But
listen,
there was no struggle. He sat there and let the person do it. So it's a very sketchy thing. Like the wife asked if it was a friend. She would like to, like no, like they just don't have any closure to this.
they
That's
have nothing,
that's
nothing
the
at
biggest
all.
thing. Like at the end of the whole Jimmy Snuka one last week, we kind of came to the synopsis or to the conclusion. Jimmy did it. We just never got. They never got the closure of just having it in court being said. This
Correct.
one, we don't even know. We know he was a part of an organized crime family. We know they also revealed that he stole money from
He stole $400,000 from them, and he
dude.
had a whole crate of loose cigarettes.
He had the contraband and $55,000 in a closet at the house. But yeah, he stole up to $400,000 from the mob, and I think it was Tony Moore. He was like, "Yeah, that's enough to get killed."
But a man said it don't matter if you was doing something crooked, they was gonna kill you regardless, even if it was for a little bit of money. If you did something that they did not like or bad, whichever, they were going to handle it, and that's in fact what they did.
The description from Claudia, his daughter, about the funeral was so sad. That was like the saddest part for me about this whole episode. Her saying that she basically couldn't even recognize her own father, and if it wasn't for his hands and seeing her father's hands, she couldn't even tell that that was him. And she had like the whole picture of her father, her, and her
The
mother, and
mom,
like
yeah.
the whole audience like basically sat up and like it was just so pure. But honestly, that was like the saddest part of this whole documentary for me because I was like,
Yeah.
this poor girl, and then her telling the whole story at the end about how he could have been a grandfather to 2 beautiful kids. It's very sad to see how much was taken away from her. That was like the saddest part of this whole documentary for me.
Yep. And definitely something that a kid shouldn't have to never experience or go through so young and things like of such nature. Um, but then it goes on, they were like, okay, there's some red flags going on, and it's like they need to know more. And so that's when they start to investigate and see what's happening. And they saw that Dino was a part of the list of group of people that was at a warehouse that was stolen from. And Mr. Rick Martel gave us that information himself.
Yes, Rick Martel did not want to take part in this documentary, but he did a documentary a few years ago. I think they said in 2007, talking about. We also got information about like they the mafia ran through the natives, which was the Indians, to get the cigarettes. That's how they got like the caseload, and they were like basically half price. That's how they were able to get it and able to have this type of like smuggling business. And Martel said Dino went to see the Indians who were big wrestling fans, and Dino had a
Mhm.
monopoly with them. They were able to pass cigarettes because they had the river to lock down. The cigarette business was so great that the cocaine people were trying to get involved
Yeah,
and
and
to get
him.
it
Mhm.
back. Martel says Dino hooked up with the cocaine guys and had a $400,000 shipment somewhere. When the cocaine guy went to pick it up, the RCMP, which was the police in Montreal, intercepted and seized the product. Now the blame game is being thrown around between the two sides. So the $400,000 he says he thinks is the reason why Dino was killed.
And it caught up to him, apparently.
It will catch up to you. If you steal money from the mob, I'm just warning anybody. If you're watching this video and you involved in an organized crime syndicate, you're involved in any type of smuggling business, don't steal money from these guys if you don't really know them, because you don't really know what the consequence is going to be.
I definitely agree with the Mountie Jacques when he says he let someone in and they were his friend, or he knew them personally, because only someone that's face to face to you is going to shoot you that way, and then someone else shot you to make sure in from the back that you're going to be dead.
It's either that, I want to say it's either a friend, or I want to say that someone gets in the house, knew exactly, went in the house exactly when the wife and the daughter left, because the wife and the daughter leave at 9 p.m. They don't get back to 12:30 a.m. So that's a 3.5 hour window for them to do everything. So I could totally see someone from
Mm-hmm.
the crime family or someone, a contract killer, coming in, sneaking up on Dino, and Dino just saying, "Take me, leave my family alone. Just take me now. I'm not gonna fight it." And boom, boom, boom. I can see that as well. But
True. True.
I
I can
think
see
that
that. That's a good one. Yeah.
I think everybody is pointing to the friend, because Dino, like they told the whole story about him in the bar and grabbing the Canadians player and driving his head into his new brand new car into the hood of the car. Dino had a short temper, so I think if Dino was facing one guy with a gun, he probably would have fought them off. But I think it is probably a combination of thinking about his family's safety, as well as probably a friend that was his demise.
Definitely have a good scenario. I think I have to agree with you on that one too, man.
So how did you like this one? Where does it stack up to the rest of the season?
This one was pretty good. I feel like it was like, again, like you said, an old crime show that we were watching. It was definitely good. It gave you more information on who he was, because again, he really wasn't in the wrestling eye on our face for a very long time. So it gives you more info and insight of who he was and what he was, and he loved wrestling.
Yes, I liked the whole synopsis at the end, kind of showing him both sides of him, kind of showing the overall of how people saw him as a professional wrestler and how his daughter and his wife saw him as a man. So I like that whole ending. That was very nice. So that wraps up our review of the Dino Bravo episode 6, season 2, Dark Side of the Ring. Next week we got Dr. David Schultz. If you are not aware of Dr. David Schultz, he is the famous wrestler who is most known for slapping the reporter from 2020, from 2020 news reporter John Strozel back in 1984, I believe. So it's going to be very
Hmm.
interesting. This one is one that a lot of people are intrigued to find out how Dark Side of
Yeah.
the Ring is going to stretch this for a whole hour, because it's really that one point. I mean, you can kind of tell they kind of have told the story of these guys' career up until a specific point in time. So maybe, that will be enough information to go there. But it's really this one particular thing, and then the backstory behind it. I've heard rumors that the WWE and Vince McMahon basically pushed him into slapping the reporter to prove that to protect the wrestling business and prove that it was real. So I would love to hear the backstory and what David Schultz thinks about his whole legacy in professional wrestling.
This person is still alive too.
Yes, he is, and he contributed to the documentary as
Oh, can't wait.
well.
I know nothing of this story, so I'm excited.
So post your comments down below. Tell us what you thought about the Dino Bravo Dark Side of the Ring episode. If you enjoyed this video, push the like button. And of course, watch the rest of our Dark Side of the Ring reviews for Jimmy Snuka, for Chris Benoit, New Jack, and Brawl for All. Push the subscribe button, push the bell to stay notified. Check out Miss Krssi Love on SmackDown with the Lynches. Their latest episode is up on the YouTube channel right now. And we'll be back with True Hill Heat 71 later this week. So, for the princess of all the True Hills, Miss Krssi Love, it is me, your True Hill Phenom SP3. This has been Dino Bravo, Dark Side of the Ring review, signing off until next time.